Yeah.
Okay, so with that, let me call the meeting to order. My name is Paul Goldstein. I am Chair of the Community Board 1 Waterfront Parks and Cultural Committee, and this is our May Community Board meeting of the committee. And let me just also introduce Diana Sweetie, who's our Director of Land Use and Planning. And also out there is Andrew Zelter. He is co-chair of the committee. And I thank all of you for joining us. So let's jump into it. So item 1 is Governor's Island seasonal update. And we are happy to have Sarah Krautheim, Senior VP, Public Affairs for the Trust for Governor's Island. Well, you can't pick a better time of year to talk about a nice outdoor space like Governor's Island. So why don't you walk us through what's going on out there and what you have planned? Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paul, and Andrew and the committee for having us, and of course to Diana for all of her help as always. I also wanted to introduce my colleagues who are joining me tonight. Meredith Johnson is our Vice President for Arts and Culture and Head Curator, and Juan Pablo Silas is our Associate Curator and Producer on the Arts and Culture team. And we are going to spend a little more time than usual talking about arts and culture because we have a lot happening thanks to Meredith and Juan Pablo's work, and lots of exciting stuff planned for the future. So I will share my screen. Great. Can everyone see the presentation okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. So I know this community board is very familiar with Governor's Island, so I won't go through all of the background and historical details, but wanted to mention and reiterate that we are now open year-round. The last time I came to this committee, I was talking about Winter Village and ice skating and all of the great things that we presented last winter, which was really our first winter open to the public. So want to thank everyone for all of your support and spreading the word about that. It was hugely successful, and we, believe it or not, even though it's just about to be summer, already planning for Winter Village 2.0 starting at the end of this summer. So wanted to highlight a couple of things just about our hours. We are open daily. Monday through Friday will be open during the spring and summer from 7 to 6 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays 7 to 7. And then I think most folks are aware we've been able to extend hours on Fridays and Saturdays between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So we will be doing that again, and we'll stay open until 10 p.m. So great opportunity to take a stroll around the park and check out the sunset, and also enjoy many of our delicious food and beverage options on the island. Just the basics on ferries. We do run ferries from Lower Manhattan, from the Battery Maritime Building every day. We are running them approximately every 30 minutes, which is probably the most frequency we've ever had since being open to the public. And then, of course, run our weekend Brooklyn service during the peak spring and summer months. I know I mentioned this on the at my last update last winter, but we are extremely excited to share that New York City Ferry, the city's citywide ferry commuter service, now serves Governor's Island every single day. So we are officially on the South Brooklyn route, which means you can now get to Governor's Island from many points in Brooklyn daily, which has been great for visitors, but also for our tenants. And you can also get to Governor's Island every day from the Lower East Side, from the Corlears Hook stop. So that was really exciting news we were able to announce last January, and CB1 has been a huge part of the advocacy around that. So just want to thank the committee for all of your support and getting that done. It's been something that I've personally been working on since I started here. So very exciting. Wanted to highlight a couple of things happening on the island this summer. A lot of this will be familiar to you, but just wanted to call out some of the free recreational opportunities we have. Obviously, the hills and the park are open every day. They're looking more beautiful than ever with all of the spring blooms happening throughout the park. We also have a wonderful lavender field that our partners at Earth Matter manage that will be in bloom in the next couple weeks. So definitely encourage you to come check that out in early June. Biking, Governor's Island is a wonderful place to learn how to ride a bike, to take your kid to learn how to ride a bike. And we have our daily bike rentals with our partners at Blazing Saddles and City Bike. And also just want to mention that Blazing Saddles offers free bike rentals for everyone before noon on weekdays. So definitely want to spread the word about that. Kayaking with the Downtown Boathouse will return in June. They offer free kayaking lessons every Saturday. And then we also have I think this is New York City's only adventure playground operated by Playground NYC. This is open to the public on weekends, totally free for kids. It's supervised play, but they also run a great day camp during the summer, during the week. In addition to all of those opportunities, wanted to mention that the Governor's Island National Monument has reopened. They opened on May 7th, and their rangers are out on the island offering free history tours. In addition to that, we offer a longer walking tour that's totally free on Saturdays and Sundays. It leaves from our visitor center located at the Manhattan Ferry Landing. Great opportunity to learn a little bit more about the park design, but also a broader capture of Governor's Island's unique history. And then lastly, just wanted to mention two permitting opportunities. We do have grills available for visitors to rent. You don't have to show up at 5 a.m. with all your stuff. You can rent it in advance and you have the grill and picnic tables for the whole day. That's available on our website. And then in addition to that, our athletic field reservation system is open. Leagues, school groups can book field reservations on our website, and that's something we're also really trying to spread the word about. So as a follow-up, I will share some flyers we put together just about that opportunity. Just highlighting the fact that we have a lot of small businesses operating on the island, providing great food and beverage options. We were really happy to be able to work with nearly 20 small businesses even during the pandemic, and almost all of them are returning this year. Just a couple of highlights. Pictured at the top is a vendor called the Foodie Spot. This is actually a partnership we started a year ago with NYCHA, and this vendor will feature rotating vendors who are graduates of NYCHA's Business Pathways food program. So all businesses operated by residents of NYCHA, and they will be open on weekends. And then also just wanted to mention that we do have something for everyone. We offer vegan, vegetarian, kosher, and halal options at our vendors, and those are noted on our website. Just in terms of a couple of new things, I know this committee has talked about the spa probably for about a decade. This is a project that has been many years in the making, and I'm happy to say that they are officially open to the public. They offer treatments, but also you can book a day pass and enjoy the pools, and they also have food and beverage options. And I did want to mention, we are working with them on a community benefit, which will allow for free visits, particularly focused on, we're planning to focus on senior centers, and definitely want to make sure that opportunity is available for folks in Community District 1. So we'll follow up with more info on that. A couple other things, pictured on the right here is a new vendor we're really excited about. This is Karoo Club. They actually operate in Industry City today. but they will be bringing the French sport of pétanque to Governor's Island, which is basically like a bocce ball court. So that will be opening up on King Avenue, which is where we've had a lot of food vendors in the past. And they will be offering sandwiches by Court Street grocers, as well as beverage options to purchase. And we are also still continuously adding new food and beverage amenities, so we'll be announcing more throughout the season. Now I just wanted to talk a little bit about arts and culture, and just before I turn it over to Meredith, wanted to highlight a couple of upcoming special events. So, we obviously were not able to host many events during COVID, but happy to say that events are back in full swing. The vast majority of what we present on the island is totally free and open to the public. This weekend, for instance, we have a classical music concert happening in Nolan Park with Rite of Summer. Japan Performing Arts Festival will be happening Memorial Day weekend, also totally free and open to the public. We have a number of 5K and 10K races, which we're super excited about. We're bringing outdoor films back in partnership with Film at Lincoln Center. But one big one I wanted to make sure folks were aware of is NYC Pride will be hosting their first event on Governor's Island and first in-person event post-COVID. Pride Island is a series of concerts which will be happening the last weekend in June. Folks are probably familiar with this event from Hudson River Park, but we're super excited to be hosting them. And we'll share a link to tickets and more details in the chat. And then before I turn it over to Meredith to dive more into our arts program, just wanted to mention that, that the Urban Farm is now open for the season and also offers a number of free programs on weekends. Meredith, I will turn it over to you to talk about our arts program.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. So the arts and culture program on Governor's Island, as Sarah said, is very active and has been growing and deepening its relationship with the island over many years, which all of you have been witness to. But particularly during COVID, we spent some time to do some real deep strategic planning to define what the Trust's arts program does and to define Governor's Island Arts. And so one of the things I wanted to share is Governor's Island Arts mission, which is to create transformative encounters with art for all New Yorkers, inviting artists and researchers to engage with the issues of our time in the context of the island's layered histories, environments, and architecture. So, we do this in 3 ways within the arts program on Governor's Island. And obviously the arts program on Governor's Island isn't in a silo. We are very cross-disciplinary, and the arts program really intersects with all of the activities on the island, both in the recreation and open space and park side, but also on the climate side. And so we focus our work in 3 distinct areas. One is public art commissions, which hopefully many of you have seen throughout the years. These are projects that we commission through Governor's Island Arts, but we also partner with other cultural organizations on realizing with artists. Through programs and partnerships, both single events and also kind of long-standing serial partnerships like our film program with Film at Lincoln Center. And then, of course, our organizations and residence program, which is the program of hosting cultural and multidisciplinary organizations from throughout New York City in our historic houses in Nolan Park and Colonel's Row, which my colleague Juan Pablo oversees. So I'm going to talk a little bit about all of these buckets. So first and foremost, wanted to kind of give you a preview of the commissions that we have on view. So through the summer, we were very excited to announce that we're going to be extending Chantel Martin's The May Room, which opened in 2019. And has really been a crowd favorite. And so that's going to be extended through the summer. We have multiple projects on long-term view. 2 that opened last year, the field station of the Melancholy Marine Biologist by Mark Dion, which is near Nolan Park, and Not for Nothing, the new mural by Duke Riley in our ferry building. Of course, Cabin by Rachel Whiteread and Yankee Hangar by Mark Hanforth, which have been on the island for many years, continue to be on view. And we just opened our most recent commission, which is a very long-term project, which is an orchard of 102 hybrid fruit trees containing multiple varieties of stone fruits and apples on each tree. That really act as a gene bank for species of fruit that were once grown or native in New York, but have since kind of been lost in the city due to climate and agricultural industrialization. So this is a public orchard that as it will continue to grow and evolve as the island grows and evolves. And one really important thing to note about this project is it's not just a beautiful orchard and sculptural work on the island that people can come and pick and enjoy the fruits and learn about them, but it also involves distributing 100 trees to community gardens throughout New York City through a partnership with Green Thumb. So we were very excited to launch that in April, and we will continue to be having a series of programs within the orchard annually from this point on. We have a couple other things coming later in the summer, so keep an eye out for those announcements. Next slide. Oh, is Sarah there? Oh, great, thanks. Our organization and residence program, which I know that this committee has heard updates on in the past, is really such a core part of our program. This year we have roughly 23 organizations spread across Nolan Park and Colonel's Row and historic houses who came to the island through an annual open call for arts, educational, and community organizations. We usually put this call out in September of each year and select the organizations before the end of the year. Orgs are provided with space within the historic houses for exhibitions, public programs, workshops, and artist and resident space. Annually, we have about 70 free public programs and exhibits through this program, and we host about 120 artists who are served by the individual organizations who are within the houses in the residency program. And they all provide these artists with free studios and workspace. And our goal is that this program moves from a seasonal program to a year-round multidisciplinary cultural campus. So the organizations that are here seasonally now, we really hope will grow into a year-round community where the organizations are in the space 12 months a year. Next slide. Oh, great. So this is just a snapshot of some of the 2022 organizations in residence. Many are returning organizations who have been part of the island in recent years, many of whom have been on the island for 12 to 14 years. Just a couple of new organizations to note who are brand new this year. One is CODA, another is the National Academy of Design. So we're excited to continually be bringing new voices into the community and into the mix as well. I wanted to highlight a number of free programs and exhibitions that are happening on the island this summer. First, I wanted to share what our friends and partners at the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council have on deck at their Arts Center on Governor's Island. They have a really exciting exhibition by Amy Koshman and Jennifer Koshman, both sisters. Amy was once in residence at the Arts Center, so it's exciting to have her and her sister return in this exhibition. Alyssa Blount-Moorhead and Bradford Young have an exhibition, and Simon Benjamin. So we're really excited. I'm very excited to see these shows and the continued amazing work that the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council does. Some special exhibitions to highlight within the organization and residence program. Just a couple here. Art Crawl has an exhibition called Free Your Mind through August 1st. Mokata is going to be hosting the Supremacy Project from June 4th to September 18th. And the NARS Foundation has an exhibition called Conversations of Home. Syracuse University has a continued MFA program on the island in Colonel's Row that's called Steady Retcon. Not a House returns this year in Colonel's Row, and I should say the organizations in the slide before are all in Nolan Park. These are organizations in Colonel's Row. Not a House will be open from June 4th to August 7th. And Beam Center is doing a project called Tree Trunk, which is a series of 7 site-specific textile sculptures. And they're working with their camp on this. We're excited to host that throughout the island. So I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah for the future of Nolan Park.
Great, thanks, Meredith. So I know this committee and other committees at CB1 have been sort of following along our vision for creating this year-round cultural district that Meredith mentioned. So just to give a lay of the land, Nolan Park is one of my favorite parts of the island. It is a sort of campus of 15 1- and 2-family wood-framed former officers' quarters, which basically every commanding officer in the Army and Coast Guard lived in while the island operated as a military base. So right now, the program that Meredith just went over is this area is hosting organizations on a seasonal basis, but these buildings really need a lot of work. They need new building systems, they need full gut renovations. And our vision is really to transform what's been a very successful seasonal model into this year-round campus. And some of the goals I just want to highlight, first and foremost, thanks to Meredith's leadership, the island has really grown as this great cultural resource. And we've been able to foster a lot of partnerships over the years, but we really want to grow that and cement arts and culture as a core piece of the island's identity, which it has been, really since the beginning of the island's history as a public place. We also want to continue to support all of the great free public programming that we offer. Right now, we offer 70 to 80 free public programs a year. Now that we're open year-round, there's huge potential to do more and really provide a diversity of experiences for visitors of all ages. And then, another important piece of this is providing affordable space for arts organizations, artists, and cultural practitioners. LMCC is already doing this through their residency program. As Meredith mentioned, the seasonal orgs and residence program serves about 120 artists a year. But there's a real opportunity for Governor's Island to continue to grow as this place where people can sort of have separation from the rest of the city and create and be inspired. So with that, we have over the past couple years started the process of really planning for the future of Nolan Park. And this is something that Mayor Adams announced as a core pillar of his economic recovery blueprint that was released in March. But there's a lot of energy and investment into making this a real resource for the New York City cultural community. So just in terms of where we are with this, what we envision is the trust really taking on the renovation of these buildings using city capital funding and other sources, and basically creating move-in ready suites for cultural organizations. And part of the reason why we plan to take on this renovation work is that it is expensive. These building systems haven't been touched really since the mid-90s. They require upgrades to make them ADA accessible. They require upgrades to create restrooms. And part of the goal is for us to be able to partner with some of the smaller cultural organizations we've worked with over the years and really lower the barrier to entry to creating year-round permanent homes for them. So we had some capital funding in our budget. Really, this planning started in 2018, but we allocated that funding to renovate Building 20, which is a building that the Community Board 1's Landmarks Committee had a lot of involvement in. But we released a request for proposals to cultural organizations across the city in March of 2020. We received several responses and were able to designate Billy and Oyster Project as the first tenant for Building 20. They're basically going to make that building their headquarters. They already have space on the island, but this will offer space on the upper floors for them to utilize as offices. And then our vision is that for every single building in this campus, the ground floor is really a public gallery space. So they're going to be doing all of their public programming out of that space. They envision having educational exhibitions. They envision bringing school groups out there. But you can sort of imagine, you know, the upper floors really being for workspace and residency programs, and the lower floors being totally open to the public. In addition, that RFP resulted in a couple of other year-round tenants. Not in building 20, but building 9, which is the former block house, is a building that our ferry crew actually used to stay overnight in. That building was essentially ready to go and was perfectly suited for artist residency programs. So we were able to provide space for 2 new residencies. Institute for Public Architecture is hosting an architect residency focused on design and social justice. And then Shandaken Projects, which is a residency program that has also partnered with Storm King Art Center and with Governor's Island over the years. They now are providing free studio space in that building. So the 20 Nolan Park, I'll actually skip ahead to the next slide. This project is actively under construction. It received approval from CB1 Landmarks Committee, probably pre-pandemic in 2019, and from LPC, and we have just started construction on this building. And this building is a 2-family, so we actually have another suite available that we did not designate through the RFP, that we are actively marketing to cultural organizations throughout the city. But this just sort of gives you a sense of what the first floor plan would look like. But the scope really involves building 2 move-in ready suites for organizations. We are doing a full gut renovation with updated windows, full MEP and fire suppression systems, and then ADA accessibility. There will now be a ramp leading up to the porch, which is obviously super important. And that construction is expected to be completed in 2023. So, you know, we're learning as we go. This is the first building that we've renovated within the district, but super exciting to see the potential. And you know, there's a lot of excitement, as I mentioned, from the mayoral administration about this project and allocating resources towards it. Just to go back to the last slide for a second, we do also have an additional $5 million of capital funding to do a second building. So we are looking at building 19, which is a building that has been offline for a number of years for our seasonal program. So we will be starting design work sometime later this year and expect to release another request for proposals. And, you know, certainly would love the community board's help in spreading the word about that opportunity for cultural organizations. You know, just to close, one thing I want to point out, you know, because this is a small contained district, we're really excited about exploring district-wide sustainability improvements in this area to also showcase, you know, really innovative approaches to sustainable and resilient design for adaptive reuse projects. So that's something that our team is actively planning and you know, think is a really exciting opportunity. So just to close on the future of Governor's Island Cultural Campus, in terms of next steps, we are currently in the process of identifying additional capital funding sources to support this. We are in conversation, for example, with EDC and the Department of Cultural Affairs about their Affordable Real Estate for Artists program. So we feel confident that we will get some funding to help support this vision. We're also talking to a lot of organizations that are actively working on Governor's Island about their long-term plans, and our hope is that Many of the folks that you all have probably become familiar with over the years that are presenting programming will over time have permanent homes on the island and not just make it a seasonal process. But this is going to take some time. There are 15 buildings that we're looking to renovate to support the cultural campus. So we will continue to offer the seasonal opportunity via our open call. So we will be releasing that for next year sometime this fall, and we'll certainly circulate that opportunity as we finalize it. So with that, that's what we had for this evening. Thank you again for bearing with us through the long presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions. And I'll stop sharing, but I can pull up slides at any point.
Okay, thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Pablo. That was great, very thorough. Yeah, it's exciting to see all the work that's going on and what you're trying to achieve. Renovating all those historic buildings would be wonderful. So, and I'm sure the community board will review them when they come up for design purposes with the landmarks, seeking landmarks approval. Committee members, any questions or comments from anyone on the committee or anyone about this? I'm not seeing anyone so far. Looks like you covered everything. Well, if that's the case, let me thank you all for coming. And hopefully you will see some of us out on Governor's Island in the foreseeable future. Enjoy it out there, and thank you so much.
I see Richard Corbin's hand. No.
Oh, I didn't see it. Sorry. Now I see it.
Yes, thanks. I just put it up late there, Paul. I felt I just needed to underscore what you just said. The presentation, the arts work, the arts program, the planning for it, and all the other programs are just so truly impressive. And, you know, I know we've had some differences in terms of the construction projects and all of that, but I think we have to commend the trust for this kind of community involvement, community relationship, and the kind of things that they're bringing to the community. It's very, very impressive. You know, as you know, Paul, I've been involved with Hudson River Park, and, you know, this is just extraordinary right here.
Thank you so much, Richard. I really appreciate that.
Well said.
We would love to also extend an offer to, you know, we've done tours with the community board, but it's been very park centric. You know, we'd love to invite you all out for a tour of all the arts programming, because it's great to see in person. And, you know, Meredith and Juan Pablo give probably my favorite tour of the island, but, you know, we'd certainly love to have you all out, and obviously more to come.
Okay.
I would love that.
Yes, thank you so much. And we will probably take you up on that. We'll work with you and Diana and work with the committee to see when they're available and what's a good time and what would work for everyone. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Great. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just wanted to say really quick before we jump off that it's really, there's so many amazing cultural organizations on Governor's Island, and we can't take all the credit because there are so many cultural leaders who are there and part of the community. And we've been thrilled to welcome Juan Pablo to really oversee that program and continue to cultivate that you know, kind of deep, rich community that you're talking about, Richard. So thank you very much for those comments.
And we know that our own LMCC is one of them. So that's
yes. All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Okay. I guess with that, we're ready to move on to our second item, which is regarding City Hall Park. There's a relatively new organization that's been put together, and we'll hear more about it right now. It's called City Hall Park Conservancy. And we have several board members here. And let me throw it over to to April Krishnan, who's here with us, and I think she's going to start it off, and some of her colleagues may join in. But we're very interested to hear all about it. City Hall Park is obviously one of our premier parks here in Lower Manhattan. We're very concerned about it. I think we give a lot of support to City Hall Park. I'm sure we, like you, don't always get everything and all the improvements we'd like to see, but let's hear from you on what your priorities are and what your mission is. You're muted. Diana, can you help her with that?
Let's see.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, April.
All right, good. Crisis averted. Before we get started, I just want to make sure, I think Alessandra Galetti should be listed as a panelist. I don't see her there. If we could let her in, that'd be great. And thank you so much. That's a tough act to follow. The Governor's Island Trust for Governor's Island is amazing. But we thank you for having us join your meeting today. I'm April Krishnan, and I'm one of the founding board members of City Hall Park Conservancy. Tonight we have we have 3 other board members, and I will let them introduce themselves in a couple of slides down the road. But we have Alessandra Galetti, Sue Ellen Epstein, and Ellen Kahn joining us from all board members. And I will start my screen share. Okay. You can all see this?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Let's see. Let me just do great. Okay. So you may have seen our mission statement on our website already, we have a great website up and running. It's chpc-nyc.org. But basically, the City Hall Park Conservancy's mission is to really enhance and re-envision City Hall Park as a community asset and a citywide symbol, and to celebrate its past and contemporary history. So we have sort of a multi-tiered approach to helping to restore and maintain planted areas through special projects, advocating for upgrades like improved seating or park amenities, and really developing community involvement through regular events and programming. I mean, it goes without saying that obviously the Parks Department, is primarily responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the park, but we really see our organization as adding kind of this extra layer of enhancements to the park, working very closely with them to really help the park function as not only a landmark park, but really as a neighborhood park as well, that is very well used by the community, and just can become the best park that it could be. I mean, we all know that there are some challenges there. We've been lucky to work with, we were founded last summer, and we worked very closely with the Partnership for Parks. They were instrumental in kind of getting us up and running. And the Parks Department has been very supportive of us. We're in close contact with Therese Flores. We speak to her about every week on various issues in the park. So we really see ourselves as working collaboratively with the Parks Department, as well as other city agencies, to really kind of help push things forward and making change in the park. Okay, so now I'll let a few of the other board members introduce themselves. Sue Ellen, do you want to say hi?
I am now unmuted. Hello. Yes, so I'm Sue Ellen Epstein, and I lived almost across the street, Murray Street at Broadway from the park, and for so many years watched the children grow up playing in front of the stairs of City Hall Park. Been mugged in the park, been walking through and not being able to walk through. And I just find so many beautiful things about it that we really need to keep accessible to everybody. And I'm really delighted to be able to be a part of that. So that's my position. Thank you.
So Ellen, Alessandra, are you still
Yes.
on? Okay.
Yeah, I'm on. I'm here. I'm actually visible. Hi. Thank you so much for letting us present this new conservancy to all of you. And you might wonder, there is really nothing wrong with the City Hall Park, but there is that is not a community park. So I am part of the Tribeca community, and I use many other parks, but not this particular one. And recently, thanks to Suellen and other friends, I started going to this park, and I love it. It's really fantastic. There is trees in abundance, history. So how to highlight and make it more attractive for the community. So this is our goal. And thank you. And now, Ellen, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ellen Kahn, and I live a half a block from the park on Orange Street. And, I love having a park nearby. And I think it's, we really want to see the park open up and have more events and just be a better park than it's been, because it's been a little neglected in the past few years, especially due to COVID. And we just want, to have a place in the neighborhood that's really vital to the neighborhood, not just for City Hall Park officials. So it would be great to see the park opened up more. I've spent my career doing brand and vision and design, and have worked mostly in the entertainment business, but have worked with nonprofits. And I really can help us envision, all the improvements that we want to do. So thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. So there's also a fifth founding board member, Leah Singer. She is traveling this week, but she's lived across the street from City Hall Park for 30 years. She's an arts journalist and a photographer and a film-based artist. She's just finishing up a degree in museum studies, and is going to be sort of helping us think of interesting ways to bring some more attention to the history of the park. We feel like people walk through the park, they're walking to the subway, they're going to work, and there's not a lot of awareness of what that ground contains, the stories there, the actual bones there. There's a whole wealth of information that I think not many people know about. So we're starting to think about ways to sort of bring that forward through either signage or a podcast, or multiple different ways. I realized I didn't really introduce myself, so I'm April Krishnan, and I also lived across the street from the park for 10 years. I'm now 2 blocks away, but I have a graduate degree in urbanism and just a real passion for public space and parks, although I am working as an interior designer at the moment. So just to dive into some of our organizational details, we currently are fundraising with a temporary fiscal sponsor, IOBI. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of IOBI, but it's a really wonderful crowdfunding platform that works with basically grassroots organizations that are helping to improve community and neighborhoods. So they are our temporary fiscal sponsor for the next few months. While we get up and running as an official 501c3. We worked with the New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, and they matched us with a large law firm who was located downtown, and is shepherding us through the full 501c3 process, which is well underway to become a full nonprofit. The fundraising has gone well so far. We've only started 2 months ago. We have received 2 private grants. We applied for and were qualified for 100% match funding from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. And so that we're very happy that that's all going well. And we've also
been working with, we have an NYU intern who has helped us with all these amazing graphics under the tutelage of Ellen and our website. And we're also hoping to get some more interns, local interns this summer. So we have a lot on our plate, but sort of our initial key development areas over the next few months are growing our volunteer base. And, you know, from a gardening, you know, a Saturday gardening group, but also other volunteers, graphic designers, event planners, you know, people interested in the arts, to try to get a real community, a real group interested in improving the park. And we're also doing free events. We're working on our summer program now, which I can tell you about a little bit later. And we're establishing our organizational structure and fundraising and helping. We have a few sort of immediate short-term beautification projects in the park as well. So the reasons that we sort of see for a conservancy, I mean, I'm sure you all are quite familiar with some of these things. The Parks Department oversees 14% of the city land, yet receives less than 10%, 1%. I wish it were 10% of the budget. And they really do sort of depend on these partnerships to help run the parks, help activate the parks, help beautify the parks. So we have been looking to and reaching out to various other conservancies, like Seward Park Conservancy, the Corliers Hook Group, which are doing sort of similar partnership roles as we would like to do. And especially for this park, I mean, we all know that there's been significant residential growth downtown, but this park in particular has had a lot of sort of immediately adjacent residential growth. Beekman, you know, Park Row, the Chambers Street condominium, and they're people of, you know, all ages, and there's just a need for green space. There's a lack of green space down here. It's only going to get worse with sort of the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency Project, which is wonderful, but will result in, you know, closed parks. It has already started to result in closed access to green areas. So we really see a need for a great park. And then this is an interesting diagram that Alessandra created, and it really sort of outlines some of the issues that City Hall Park is facing. It's 8.8 acres total. The area that is open to the public officially is what?
I know.
Oh, sorry. Is 0.45, like less than half an acre. That's that northwest corner. And then the southern part of the park, there are lawns. They're not in great condition. There are some low fences there. A lot of pathways, and then that whole central area and the northwest corner is really completely closed to the public. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything else there, Alessandra. It's just an interesting graphic to show some of the challenges in access.
Yeah, so you feel like when you go to the park, you think it's really very large park, but it's not. Also, it's surrounded by multiple fences. You know, they make the place even less friendly. For example, we are talking currently with the Parks Department about substituting the police barricade, that is the orange line there, with something a little bit more friendly. So it's not that we want to change everything now, but we want to bring this observation to you guys, that the park is mentioned. If you go to Parks Department website, it's 8 acres, but in reality is what people can use as a lawn is 0.45. And it also is not very visible because there is fencing surrounding everything, multiple fencing. So that's the existing conditions. So go ahead and
and just to sort of go through, you know, some photos of the existing conditions. The photo on the left is the one lawn that is sort of open to the public. That was taken a few weeks ago. There's a dog situation in that area. We're not sure what the solution is to that, but we're talking to the Parks Department and talking internally about how do we kind of manage that. The Parks Department is going to be reseeding some of this lawn area and fencing some of it off this spring and sort of midsummer, so that should help a little bit. There's a lot of overgrown shrubs. It impacts safety and non-working water fountains. So we're trying to sort of get to the bottom of that and think about ways of fixing that. So now on to some more positive information. The projects that we have planned and are actually all of these are currently underway are summer. The first is sort of summer community events. So we currently have some free Tai Chi classes that the first one is going to be this Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. And the next one will be June 4th, and we're hoping to continue that through the summer. We would like to reach out to, we are reaching out to some of the local organizations like the African Burial Ground and even the Indian, the museum down at the Battery, American Indian Museum, to do some historical walks. We have an Audubon bird watching person that we'd like to schedule for later in the summer. And we've already had a great event with the Urban Park Rangers and would love to bring them back. They were wonderful. So these are planned and ongoing. We have some even other events that we're thinking of in the fall and through the winter. The South Parterre planting this one is pretty exciting for us. And I think it really encapsulates what we're trying to do, which is trying to work collaboratively with a range of stakeholders and agencies. So it's something that we've been working on together with the New York Parks Department, the Public Art Fund, and the HORT, the Horticultural Society of New York, to bring some renovations and plantings to the rectangular bed, which is just south of the fountain. That area has that's an area where the Public Art Fund installs their seasonal sculpture. So we got them on board, and I have another slide that I'll show you some more detail on that. And the pollinator garden at Tweed was one of the grants that we were awarded. We got $3,000 just a couple months ago to design and plant a pollinator area at the northeast corner of the park. And it's in some unused beds that have been unused for about 10 years. I think they were originally built by Grow New York City. So we've been working with the head of the Department of Horticulture at the Parks Department to design and plan that. So the first project is the community engagement events that we have. And we've been thinking a lot about what kind of events and community programs to have, because the interesting thing about this park is that it neighbors 5 different communities. It's Tribeca, it's Financial District, Seaport, Two Bridges, Chinatown. And it has the capacity or the possibility of really acting as a nexus between all of these different communities, bringing people together. And we want the programming to reflect that. So we're thinking hard about that internally. We feel like the Tai Chi is a good place to start because it's intergenerational, wide appeal. But we really do want to, that's one of our goals, is to have a very well thought out events program. So the School of Tai Chi Chuan will be leading the community classes, historical walks. We've also started to reach out to other local groups like the Church Street School for Music and Art, which came to our Earth Day event a few weeks ago. So this is the South Parterre. I don't know if you are all familiar with it. You can see the fountain is on the right side of this image here. And it's really one of the only sort of rectangular planted garden spaces in the park. This is what it used to look like 22 years ago when it was planted with tulips. And we have put together this plan, which it really came about, thinking about knowing that the Public Art Fund will be installing a large sort of central piece at the beginning of June. they were not, this area had been really lacking in plants. There, we had put some bulbs in a year ago, but it did not have sort of a cohesive design and was very, very bare. I mean, if you look at it now, it's a lot of dirt. It's very bare. And some things are overgrown and not taken care of very well, and there's weeds in there. So we cleaned out the weeds, and we reached out to the Public Art Fund because they would like, to see it sort of complementary to their amazing artwork. It's going to be Wyatt Con actually coming June 2nd. So they were interested to work with us. They'll be sort of donating some landscaping, and we are sourcing plantings. We're also working with the Hort, who is donating some services as well. So that will be at the beginning of June, and we're pretty excited about that. This is our third project, the pollinator garden. These photos are from our kickoff event that was held on April 23rd to celebrate Earth Day and to help clean out the planting beds. It was very well attended. We had great feedback, and it was just really wonderful. We had the Church Street School, we had the Urban Park Rangers who were speaking about the history of the park. They brought some old photographs, and they brought some animal pelts, and we're talking about urban fauna and flora. So we'll be continuing designing this area as a pollinator area through the summer of 2022. This, I don't know if you're familiar with, this is actually so this is the northeast corner of the Tweed Courthouse, where the UPK, the Universal Preschool, is located. And that area is supposed to be open to the public. It's been gated, it is gated, but we're sort of hopeful that we are starting to plan events there. The Parks Department is supportive of that on the weekends. And we're kind of hopeful that this will be a real area that can be cultivated as a learning area, pollinator plants, possibly like a teaching herb garden. We can, the children at the UPK are right there, as well as other neighborhood schools, and maybe rethinking what that lawn can be as a community lawn and how we can make it sort of work better for the neighborhood. So that's about it. And we wanted to thank you. And we would also love to, walk with you all through the park sometime this summer, and go over some of our other ideas. We have a lot of ideas. This was sort of just our initial presentation, but we're hoping to really grow and make some lasting change. So let me know if anybody has any questions. I guess I will. Did you want to share anything else, Sue Ellen or Alessandra? No, okay.
No, I think you covered it. Somebody's raising their hand.
Yeah, hi. My name is Eric Yu. I just want to say, wow, I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad that people actually care and willing to put this together. I throughout the years, I just kind of forgot about this park. It's always been there, but
Yeah.
And I'm glad that the fountain will be functioning. Yeah, I think I'm glad I'm glad that people are advocating for opening up the space that have been currently and closed because of security reasons, and it should be reevaluated periodically. It shouldn't just remain closed without any evaluation. And that is a lot of space that's unused. I didn't realize that. And I was also looking over the aerial map as you were talking, just to become a little more familiar with it. And it is quite a lot of space that's off limits. I didn't realize that. Wow,
It's interesting.
I look forward to
Yeah,
it.
it's interesting. I mean, a lot of people mentioned that they sort of didn't sort of realize how much space it was, and that it's there, and they just walk through. And I do think that the loss of access has sort of happened incrementally over the last 10 years, and it kind of sort of snuck up on everybody, and then we see the results. So yeah, it's a good conversation to have. Thank you. Gerald.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I also wanted to say bravo. I mean, this is absolutely wonderful. I work across the street from the northwest corner of the park, and I go over during my lunchtime, but other than that, we really don't frequent the park much, even though we live in the neighborhood. Um, few things. Tai Chi classes, absolutely wonderful. I would love to see them more than just Saturdays. Um,
Yeah.
Also, I mean, I can envision live music in the park on the weekends and everything. That would be great to bring families out.
They can be scheduled more than Saturday. We have
Great.
the personnel who would be happy to do that. We
I
just
would
need
do it
to
every
get
morning on the way to work.
we need to know what our interest will be, you know.
You have
And I
one
love
interested party.
I love the idea of music too. I mean, Dwayne, Friends of Dwayne Park do a great job, and we could definitely do something similar.
One other thing I wanted to bring up is that in the last go around with the community board for funding or reviewing rather the council's budgets, there was a line item for converting the lights at the fountain from gas to hopefully LED or something that would be, at least to have the lights on. Because they seem to have been off for quite some time. I don't think I've ever seen the gas lights on. So if you didn't know about that, I just wanted to let you know that the community board has supported that effort. And then the last thing is, please count me in for. I love to plant. I'll dig in the dirt, help out any way I can.
Great, I'm writing your name down. Yeah, no, we did know about the effort to fix the fountain lights, and we have been in touch with the DOT. I mean, the fountain lights are different than a little bit of a different animal than some of the other like street lamps in the pathways. We did do a count of how many of those were out, which was almost half. And we have been in touch with the Department of Transportation, and they, you know, that project should be underway, as well as the fountain lights. But thank you,
Thanks so much.
Rosa.
Hi, so good to see you.
Hi.
So your event was absolutely awesome. My son had the most amazing time. So I just want everybody to know that when these guys throw an event, you should go because it was fabulous. And it was really, really wonderful to be able to dig around in areas that before then had always frankly been closed off. Like we never got to go into that section beside Tweed Courthouse. And, every single piece of grass there always felt like to me I wasn't welcome because of the fencing. And it's so wonderful to be able to actually experience it and walk past the fence. And so that was really, really fun. And I'm just excited to see everything that you guys are going to do. I'm super, super energized by everything. And I feel like you're making so much progress so quickly. And so I'm just heartened by that. That's wonderful. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And look forward to all that's to come.
Thank you so much, Rosa.
Let me jump back in. Sorry, my connection went out for a bit, but you guys were carrying on, and that's great. And I did hear a lot of the comments, and I agree. We love to have these types of groups like yours who are willing to step up and help support our parks and help with the program, everything else that's needed. And again, you have a big ally here with Community Board One. Our budget requests on an annual basis always include many items to improve City Hall Park, and we would welcome any suggestions from your organizations regarding such improvements. We were told at our last meeting that you're going to get a gardener for the park, so that will be good for you, even though you have all these volunteers, which is great. But why not take a gardener from the Parks Department? That will help as well. I do have a question.
Sure.
We have been working, or had been working for many years with another group with City Hall Park, Friends of City Hall Park. So does that group still exist, and how do you interact with them, or do you interact with them?
Yeah, I mean, all of us sort of met through we were all sort of members of Friends of City Hall Park. We sort of heard from the founder that there wasn't much interest in growing in a certain way, sort of becoming a nonprofit. And so we were really interested in bringing it into that direction. Like kind of professionalizing as a group to be able to fundraise, private fundraising, as well as applying for grants. You need to have a nonprofit status, and also just being able to partner effectively with other city agencies. So that was primarily that's why we are trying to do what we're trying to do, and we're also quite more interested in community events as well. So did anybody else want to add anything more to that?
Yeah. Well, I want to tell you, Paul, Friends of City Hall Park is still active.
Yeah.
And in fact, Skip Blumberg, who's the president of Friends of City Hall Park, has designed a It's My Park Day for this Saturday. It's going to be volunteers are going to be gardening, as far as I understand. I don't know the details of what he's doing, but they're active and involved.
So there's just two groups that are going to try to improve the park. Okay, yeah. Good. Okay, because believe me, I've worked with Skip for decades already, so I know of his work, and I know it's continuing, and you too. And I saw a piece in the Tribeca Citizen about some of his programs that are coming up. But we welcome with open arms that your organizations. It sounds fantastic to us. You're always welcome at our meetings, and come along anytime you have anything to report on. If you have activities and events that you want us to publicize, we can do that. We have a mailing list, and we put out sort of a newsletter that goes out electronically once a week. So keep us posted on things like that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
You are very welcome.
Thanks for having us at the meeting. We really appreciate it.
Okay, it looks like, unless I missed a hand again, that's the, thank you guys. You did a great job, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let's keep going. Item 3 on our agenda. The 9/11 Memorial Museum Plaza public access hours. So we put this item on in part because Rosa brought it to my attention that the museum is not keeping the plaza and the areas that the public had access to open on the same hours that they had in the past. We're told that the current hours for Memorial are 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And Rosa pointed out that it would be great if it was open so that people from the community on their way to work or on their way home can also access the space. Rosa, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, thank you so much for putting it on the agenda. I mean, I pass by there like 4 times a day, so it's incredibly saddening to me that they basically have privatized this enormous piece of land right in the center of the city, and that what I had sort of, I guess, mistakenly thought of was a public space is now actually private. And so for anybody who's, walking through there at non-tourist hours, which would be anytime before 10 a.m. or past 5 p.m., the entire block is closed. And so all of the commuters, all of the people, whether you're going to the office, you're going to school, you're going to wherever, are sort of shuttled through this narrow pathway at the perimeter and have to walk around the entire, what I think of as park space. And it just seems wrong to me because that area purposefully closed like what used to be streets, and privatized them. And I think that now, to me, it definitely feels like tourism is back in New York City. I see people everywhere, especially tourists, and especially in that location. And so I don't really understand why they cannot go back to the hours that it used to be open prior to the pandemic. Um, and I also just frankly believe that it is, public space, and so it should be publicly accessible as much as possible. So that's why I brought it up, and thank you very much for including it as an item for discussion today.
Okay, thank you for that. We did reach out to the museum and told them about this issue. And let me read you some of their response. I should say that Diana was the intermediary, and she reached out to Chris Mendoza, Senior Manager, Government and Community Affairs for the September 11th Memorial and Museum. So in response to this item, he said, our goal is a shared one. We are absolutely working to expand Memorial Plaza hours to the pre-pandemic schedule as soon as we are able. Museum visitation is a primary driver of our ability to safely and securely operate and care for the Memorial Plaza and pools and keep it free for all who visit. We are cautiously optimistic as we see visitation beginning to recover, but like our fellow nonprofits, we are still nowhere near our pre-pandemic levels. He goes on to say, expanding hours on the memorial will significantly increase our operational costs. We are working diligently to welcome as many people as possible, both to the memorial and to the museum, as well as seek funding from government sources and private philanthropy so that we can further expand access. We are unfortunately not there yet, but would be most grateful if you have any thoughts of additional funding streams we might pursue. So that was the gist of what we got back from the museum. And so I throw it open. Does the committee want to make a statement, do a letter or resolution or anything like that on this issue? Do you have any thoughts on it?
I have a question
Sure.
on so Rosa, you said they allow you to, okay, before it opens, you have to walk through this narrow path, a narrow path, but where is it in the park? So you have to go significantly out of your way, or
Well, you're only allowed to skirt sort of the outside perimeter.
oh, okay.
So and it's like narrow, like in places it's like 5 feet wide. And so like imagine all the commuters downtown that are walking, east west, or north south in that neighborhood. And they're basically having to like either walk in the street, which, are partially, barricaded and closed off, so that's, relatively safe, or they're sort of limited to a 5 foot wide section because the rest of the park is, roped off, even though, there's loads of space there. And I don't really honestly buy the whole staffing issue because there's loads of staff there all the time and they're just standing around, doing what I don't know, but the people are there, they work there, they're there and they're visible and they're in uniform. They're just not letting you in.
Thank you.
David?
Yeah, perhaps I'm a bit naive, but what is the expense in having that area open to the public? Do we have any notion? They cite it as the reason they don't open it, yet I don't understand what it costs to let pedestrians go through.
I did not see that any kind of dollar figure in their response. Diana, you don't have anything further, right?
If I'm understanding your question, David, it sounds like it's a matter of paying staff to supervise or I don't know, provide security. It seemed like a personnel issue in terms of funding. But if it's a question about a dollar amount, no, they did not specify.
I'm sorry, it just seems to me that plenty of parks operate in this city without a whole lot of supervision. And I'm just a little uncomfortable with that response from the museum. Put it that way. Seems rather blanket to me.
Yes, and I would also point out that actually all the security is publicly funded, right? We have more police there, machine guns, sniffing dogs, everything there than anywhere else in the city. And that's all coming from public funding.
Paul, what if we did a resolution, of course, advocating and supporting the hours to be expanded, but also inviting them to come to the committee and discuss and just talk through these issues so people better understand what it is, and maybe we can work towards some kind of resolution.
Doesn't sound bad to me. Andrew, did you want to speak on this, or are you okay now?
I took my hand down. I was basically going to pose along the lines of what Diana just mentioned.
So basically, this would be in the form of a letter or resolution, or either or, in which we can again restate our desire to see those hours expanded and invite them to attend so that we can further discuss how to bring this about, something along those lines.
Paul, it's Richard. I think that makes sense. It sounds like a letter to me, because really our first objective would be to really understand what the issue is here. I think Rose is correct. For my understanding, the security is very much by Port Authority people who are monitoring that area, and that security is there 24/7, as far as I understand. So I think we have to learn what this is really all about, and then put a resolution after that.
Okay, I think that makes sense. I think we're sort of due to have them come in and give us some kind of update anyway. They're a major cultural institution here in Lower Manhattan, and many of us played a major role, including members of this community board, in putting the whole post 9/11 Lower Manhattan together, and the museum is a key part of that. So I think a letter also makes sense at this stage, which would not forestall us from moving further if we found it necessary after we have this conversation with them. Rosa, did you want to respond?
Yes, I agree with all of that. And I just, I'm saddened to say that, you know, I'm seeing a pattern here, which would be basically where public space gets closed off little bit by little bit, and that the public doesn't really complain about it because it's just a little bit, or there's a logical reason that's presented to us as to why, and then more and more of it gets closed off, and then people get used to it being closed off, and then it becomes permanently closed off, and it's a real huge battle than to finally reopen it or to try to reopen it, and you're not guaranteed to win it. And so I'm realizing just from the whole, Brooklyn Bridge project, from listening to City Hall Park today, from this issue with the World Trade Center, I'm realizing that it's not maybe a figment of my imagination, but that seems to be how it works, that tiny pieces get fenced off, and then more, and then more, and then more, and the Jersey barriers become permanent fences, and that's super concerning to me. That's the Now I'm starting to actually understand. Alice fights so much for the pops, and at first maybe I didn't really get it, and now I'm understanding that, which is that these spaces that are promised to the public, to be publicly accessible in perpetuity, are actually um, slipping out from under us. Um, and so maybe we do actually need to fight for every little inch of it, or else eventually it will all be gone and privatized. I guess that's
One other example I could point out, which might be the case study in all this, is the rooftop of Pier 17, where they originally came to this community board with beautiful pictures of how they would create a huge open space for the children to play. And they would put down AstroTurf, and that space would be open, hours and hours and hours, just about all the time. And anyone who's familiar with what that space looks like now and what it's used for private dining and for concerts nearly every night. And I haven't seen a piece of AstroTurf up there ever that I could recall. Anyway, sorry, but if you want more examples, that's a good one. But you're right. So any other comments on this? I think we sort of reached a consensus on this. Anyone else want to?
Yeah, I have my mic up. Joe Lerner.
Okay, go for it, Joe.
Well, Rose is absolutely right. This privatization of public space is horrendous. And I think we should use our energies to stop this if we can, because once it gets started, it's like a steamroller and that's the end of it. So I just don't know where to go to now, but I think as a committee and as a board, we should stop privatization of public lands, period.
Well, maybe the approach should be two-pronged. Maybe for this particular case, we go down the path that we were discussing, writing this letter, bringing them in, seeing how they respond. But that does not mean we cannot, as a committee, go on record and point out one after the other of open spaces that were promised to this community and that just disappeared, whether it was from a city agency like Rosa is working with for Brooklyn Bridge Banks, or EDC does it repeatedly, Howard Hughes. I mean, there's just so many examples all over the place for this, and we should put our heads together and
Well, if I may interrupt, I think we should have a resolution saying we're against privatization of this public park. Everything else is words and paper. At least we're going to put something that we're for or against something. We're not just dilly-dallying. And I think we should have that resolution that we're against public lands becoming private property.
I would second a resolution of that description.
All right.
Thank you.
Could we also leave in a part that says something about them not being fenced off? Because theoretically, City Hall Park is a public park, but it's every single blade of grass is surrounded by a fence. And I don't know when that happened. I saw photos of it, prior to all of this fencing, and I'm sure there was a security reason why it had to happen. But now it's like going to be like that forever.
But let me just take the other side briefly and say that, parks do have to close at a certain hour. We've had problems at some of our parks securing them, and we have to have I think, a somewhat balanced approach. I don't know if we need to come down 100% that, you could never close off a public space for any reason. I think, there are closing hours for a lot of places, and I think that's worked well. I think we should certainly say that the community needs to be strongly consulted on those matters. But again, let me keep going and take other
Well,
feedback.
that's a separate issue. Number one, whether the fencing. I think the primary issue is it private land or is it public land? And number two, I made a motion that was second.
All right. Well, some more people had their hands up. Richard, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I just don't feel that I understand this as actually privatizing this land yet. I don't know what the issue is, and that's why I thought we should invite them to learn. Uh, Rosa has brought up a really important issue, but I think categorizing it as privatization, which we are all against without any doubt, but categorizing it as privatization is a little premature. That's all I would say. Let's learn what the situation is before we accuse them of something. Let's do our homework.
Well, past history shows that once you set up a conservancy, it goes into a privatization category. That's number one. And number two, we have not said that we're against making this a private operation. So I think the first step is first to let everyone know that we're against making this a private operation.
But what we're talking about has nothing to do with the Conservancy.
Well, and then we can invite them. First, let's get on the record of what we're for or against, and then we can invite any group you'd like. Central Park Conservancy, Prospect Park Conservancy, blah, 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 afterwards. But let's get on the record and say whether we're for or against something. Let's just not talk it away.
I think we've been long on the record of being against privatization of public property. There are multiple resolutions about that.
Is that so, Paul?
Yes, that is so.
Does it pertain to parklands or just in general?
Both. But
well, I guess
not all of
I
it.
guess
Parkland is
Paul,
in a separate category. It's protected by state regulations.
So far we're against it, we say, on resolutions, and yet all these things become private, like the seaport roof. We just got to do something positive. I'm not against or for it, but I want to go on record whether I want that privatized or not. That particular land space in Community Ward 1. Because once it gets out of the public lanes, we have no say in it. And the Conservancy has all the say because they have all the bucks.
Paul?
Who's that?
It's Andrew.
Go ahead.
All right, just to try and refocus us here for a second. The first issue we were talking about was next step on the issue that Rosa raised. Do we agree that for that specific issue, we're going to send a letter? Have we concluded on that very specific point? And then I have a follow-on question.
Does anyone object to sending that letter that we talked about a few minutes ago?
This letter would also invite them to our next meeting, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, it sounds like we have consensus on that.
What about a resolution that is still hanging there?
So that was my second point. So Paul, I thought actually you were perhaps going down the road of resolution when you said as a second item, perhaps we use the examples of Pier 17 and City Hall Park and others. I thought maybe you were going down the path of a resolution stating that we're concerned with the trend of what's been promised to CB1 not materializing, and it seems as though these spaces are acting more like private venues. So I thought that's where you might have been going. Maybe I misunderstood, but as it relates to that, on the topic of a resolution, how do we decide that discussion or conclude that discussion?
Let me just throw something out to Diana. Maybe you know about this. By coincidence, an hour or two before the meeting, I got an email from Tammy asking for information about the rooftop of Pier 17 that you were CC'd on as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is all about? I mean, should we be talking to her? Does she have any thoughts on this? I didn't have a chance to respond on that.
Same, and I don't quite know what the context comes from. Tammy was asking about where the regulation lives regarding public space on the rooftop of Pier 17 and also the public restrooms. I would like to find out what Tammy's talking about. It seems like it's clearly related.
I think it's from the
If the committee is interested in
23rd.
pursuing this issue, could we wait over to next month to get organized and get the information that we need to do an informed resolution?
Yes, that would be my suggestion. Joe, we're not tabling this indefinitely. I just want to gather more facts, and I would feel better going in front of the full community board with a precise.
I always want you to feel better.
So you're okay with us tabling this till next month when we could try to gather a little more info? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Mark, do you have a comment on this?
Just strangely, coincidentally, I'm on email list for because I go to classic car shows. I like into that, and I got an email about a show on September 17th on the rooftop of Pier 17. So I don't know how it relates to everything, but there's an event there on that day on the rooftop. So,
Flying cars. Good. That's exciting.
yeah. So classic cars. So
Okay. Well, thank you for that. All right. So, David, you have your hand up. Sorry.
Yeah, nothing says maritime history like a car show. I've always thought so. You went through, and I think other people would actually have other items to contribute to these various public spaces that in fact we are finding closed off. I'm wondering how much of a list we want to come up with right now, or how we would come up with it later.
I would urge anyone on this committee who has any such spaces that they could point to bring them to my attention, to Diana's, to Andrew's, so we can gather that for our upcoming meeting. Because I think, yes, this is a very relevant point that we continue to get burned in this area and there's no end in sight, unfortunately.
Do pops count?
Parks, again, parks are a little more
Oh,
protected.
no, pops.
No, she
Sorry.
said pops.
Pops. Sorry about that. I don't think pops have a lot of protection, but I don't know. Diana, do you want to speak to
Well, in terms of committee mandates, because POPs are regulated by the zoning, POPs tend to land in our Land Use Zoning and Economic Development Committee, and then Waterfront Parks and Cultural takes the spaces that are under the jurisdiction of the Parks Department. But if we are doing a resolution about the privatization of public space, I would say that it's at least worth mentioning in a whereas, although I would, for this committee, focus on the Parks Department spaces.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any final thoughts on this item before we move to the last one? Okay, but in the meantime, we'll work on that letter and get that out, and we'll report on the rest of this and put it on the agenda next month. Thank you again, Rosa. Okay, so let's move on to item 4, which is an item that we're just going to have a little more discussion about that Coast Guard space that we talked about in an earlier meeting, the one near the battery. And for that, I think I'm going to ask Andrew to speak to that.
Thanks, Paul. And I don't think this will require a great deal of time this evening, but I wanted to revisit the discussion we had regarding the Coast Guard site down at the tip of Manhattan. I believe that happened in March, and there was quite a bit of conversation, but there were 2 important takeaways that I walked away with from that presentation. One was that the site is not an active launching site for Coast Guard activities. I think we heard that the facility is not sufficiently equipped for launching operations or activities. And second, that it's largely used for administrative offices. So I really want to take the pulse of this committee. I think there's an opportunity here for us to engage first in conversations and educate ourselves a bit more, but then more formally to advocate for transforming that property into a community asset and seek to relocate what are largely offices, administrative offices. It doesn't seem to be necessary that they be housed there. So I just wanted to bring this forward to the committee and see if there's a view or consensus that we should initiate more active engagement and dialogue around that and see where it gets us, and possibly, we'll get to a point where we create a resolution around that. So let me stop there and open it up.
You did a great job of laying it out very quickly and concisely. And let's get some feedback. Anyone think, is the committee interested in pursuing this along the lines of how Andrew laid it out? Richard Corman.
Well, first, I would say, Andrew, that anytime we can get more public space, that's got to be a very good thing. So just by and large, the principle is in the right direction. But I wondered if you had specific uses in mind that is particularly driving this, the question at this moment.
No, I mean, I have some thoughts, but nothing that I would want to showcase as any baked ideas. I think a process. So first, I think we need to educate ourselves a bit more than what we learned at that meeting. But then if there's an opportunity to advance it, I think that's the next question we try and address, Richard. I just think it's prime real estate, it's prime location. I think there are probably a dozen ideas we could come up with in terms of community value and community asset. And again, I keep coming back to, we're landing on the point that it's used for offices. It would seem those offices could be located elsewhere.
There can't be anything wrong with any possibility of getting some public space or some private space moved back into the public realm. So I would certainly support at least beginning the pursuit. I know for one thing, it's probably not going to be easy, since the community in Community Board 2 and in Soho have long since tried to get a parking garage in Soho converted That's it, a GSA government garage converted to affordable housing, and has met resistance for many years, maybe even decades, for all a decade at least. But it's worth a try.
And you're right, Richard. It won't be easy. You'll recall that CB2 was all, or CB2 or CB4, or maybe both, probably for more than a decade, trying to get the tow pound off of Pier 76. It's finally happened.
Yeah, right.
It's finally happened. So maybe that's something we can point to as a somewhat related instance. But yeah, I'm not coming into this thinking it's going to be easy, but I think off the back of the presentation, I just wanted to revisit and see if others might have had a similar reaction or thought to what I walked away with.
Great.
Eric.
Yeah, Andrew, exactly. I agree with you completely. Yeah, and their presentation, there was no detail. I mean, yeah, it's just for offices, and no maritime use. Um, I I I don't mind having them there, truthfully. I don't. Um, I don't mind having them there. I don't know why. Maybe it's the history of having the Coast Guard there. They've always been there. Um, unless we have some valid reason of something to put there, like let's say the Staten Island ferry terminal needed to expand. But for me, it need to be more than just public space. Although I do value it, but I do see a value of having them there, and they do have some docking that they could revitalize in the future. But your summary of their presentation, I agree with completely. Thank you.
And I certainly understand, I think, where you're coming from. I guess I would respond to that. Again, from my perception, being there, I got the impression being there meant more of Staten Island than what these guys are doing or the activities out of that location. Being there and having that confidence to me meant the facility they're operating out of Staten Island, which I think is where they mentioned where they do launch activities and have maritime activities. I could be wrong, but that was my perception, and I understand where you're coming from.
So do you have any next steps in mind, Andrew?
Again, I'd need some guidance here because their presentation was lacking in detail. I wouldn't propose we're at a resolution stage. I'd like to have more conversations to be able to speak more knowledgeably. And I don't know if those conversations are with the people at this office, or I think they said the regional headquarters might be in Boston, if I recalled correctly. I'm not sure. Or if there are city or state agencies that we need to engage with as well. So Paula, I don't know what the next step is and would need some help and guidance. I'm happy to lead those or participate in those, but I'm not sure what the most appropriate next step is, speaking candidly.
Well, I suspect this committee is going to soon be more engaged in coming up with some ideas for designing spaces around Lower Manhattan. I know, these open spaces being built with some of these resiliency plans, the FIDI Seaport and Seaport Coastal Resiliency, and perhaps some of the others. There will be open spaces, so we should start weighing in as to what we want. Here's another potential opportunity space that we can think about and say how it could be used. Another building at the Seaport, the new Market Building. What exactly do we want there if we want it restored and rebuilt to serve the community? So those are the types of issues that we need to, start brainstorming on. And, there are some prior recommendations on some of these facilities that we can start with. not so much the Coast Guard, but some of those others. But I mean, I know that space down by the battery in the Coast Guard was even thought of for a school when we were looking for school sites.
I was going to mention that, Paul. If you recalled, it came up in one or two of our school overcrowding committee meetings.
Correct. So we had a group and we hired a group that was charged with helping us find sites for schools. And that was one of the sites they came up with. So, okay, let me, I see some more hands up, Rosa, and then we'll go back to you, Eric.
Thank you. One thing I would put out there is a field house. I know that I've been speaking with Bob Townley, and he has mentioned, and I know from sitting in on a lot of youth and ed committee meetings, that we only really have 3 full-size gymnasiums for like 11 schools in our district. And I don't know if that's the precise number, but I feel like that's the right number. So we're incredibly under-resourced in terms of recreation facilities that are actually regulation-sized recreation facilities. And, you know, downtown being downtown, it's not like we have a lot of options of where we can put these kinds of things. And so on a wish list for, let's say, Fight IC Port Resiliency, I would definitely request that we put in, you know, facilities or spaces that are large enough to be able to accommodate, you know, very specific large uses that we do not otherwise have the option to accommodate in our neighborhood.
Okay. Eric.
Yeah, this is in regards to Andrew's last statement. Since the Coast Guard, that's federal and pretty far removed and expansive compared to us, would Congressman Nadler assist and help us get some information? Has he done so in the past?
I mean, he's certainly someone that I would think is on our list of people to engage with. I don't know if there's been any engagement with him on this issue prior to our discussion this evening. I'm not aware.
We may have an issue dealing with some of our elected, such as Congressman Nadler, because the redistricting looks like it's going to create new congressional zones, and Congressman Nadler has already stated he is interested in running for a district that does not encompass Community Board 1 in Lower Manhattan. So neither he nor Carolyn Maloney, for example, are interested in running in this area. There's no shortage of other potential candidates, but that is another sort of thing that we're all going to have to figure out. And I wouldn't be surprised if Richard Corbin has something on that.
No, I think, Paul, you covered it pretty well. It's going to be really interesting to see whether, to what degree our our current Congress members actually will pay attention to the issues here downtown for the next 7 or 8 months. But that being said, on a different level, I'm trying to get Congressman Nadler to follow up on some things that he's committed to, and we'll see how that goes. But he is definitely the right person. He is the person that was dealt with when we tried to get a number of people, not me personally, but a number of people tried to get that parking garage converted. It was not successful, but he was at least the person that directly we could deal with, and he could get into the right agency. In this case, it was the GSA. In that case, in this case, it would be the Coast Guard. So yes, I think Nadler is somebody we should approach, and then just cross our fingers and hope that he's not going to be fully devoting his time to running a campaign and not paying attention to his current constituents.
And I guess regardless of who gets elected, he will be our congressman till January, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so.
Paul, sorry, just quickly. The question was asked if I had any thoughts, and I said I do. I didn't want to necessarily showcase them because they weren't fully built out. But just on this call and others, I think we've identified 3 or 4 potential use cases. I don't think that should be the basis for not moving forward, because I'm very confident we can come up with some ideas that would work in that space. So I just didn't want potential uses to be the trigger for this, because again, I don't think that will be our issue.
I asked that question, yeah, Andrew, and while I agree with you that this is an issue that is, at least to begin with, separate from the potential use, but in my experience, eventually the potential use is going to be a significant element of the decision.
Absolutely right,
if there's going to be a possible decision, that's going to be how it will be framed. So while I agree that it's premature to put it forward, and it would probably not serve us well to put any of them forward at the moment, but eventually that's going to be an important element of the discussion.
100% right. I absolutely agree with you. There will be a point in time where that's going to be the linchpin for this whole thing gaining traction.
All right. Well, that will be another future item, Diana, to put on our lists for future items to discuss and bring up at another meeting of this committee. Uses for that particular space and perhaps some of the others that have been raised. Okay, I think that's been useful discussion on that. I think we have a roadmap to follow there. Okay.
Paul, I'm sorry, can I interrupt? What just remind us all, what's the roadmap on this one?
To schedule some brainstorming sessions on uses that we could think of for that particular space. Because again, to just say we want a community space, I think we need to be a little more specific. At least that's my viewpoint. And to be more specific, we need to have a process to invite certainly the committee and the public as well to weigh in. David?
I'm just foreseeing a problem here, which is that it is a really unique location. And once we start looking at the Coast Guard leaving, we're not going to be the only people that would like to use it.
Yes, EDC can't wait to get their hands on that space, just like every other space.
Let's be careful of that. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Privatization of public spaces, yes. All right. Well, I am open to other ideas, but I think that's pretty much where we are.
Andrew, was that what you were thinking of doing as the next step?
Well, maybe there are 2 steps that happen in parallel. I think one is what Paul mapped out. I think the second is to initiate conversations with folks that can better educate us and really enhance our understanding and knowledge of all the intricacies of this issue, because as it's pointed out, it is federal use here. So I feel like personally I would need to get better educated on this as an important next step, and it can run in parallel. There's not to say that one has to follow the other.
And do you think here
So
again,
in that regard, sorry, Paul.
I was just going to say, do we need to therefore have additional conversations with the Coast Guard personnel?
So Paul, I was going to follow up with you and perhaps Tammy just initially to start thinking about who we might need to have conversations with. As I said, I'm not sure I know the best path forward in that regard.
Okay.
So that's what I was going to do as a follow-up again, and it can run in parallel with brainstorming sessions on potential use cases. And I've got 5 or 6 other ideas that, you know, I can bring when we have those sit downs.
Richard, did you have another comment?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense, the parallel path, and I would just throw Congressman Nadler's office in the mix in terms of reaching out, because they would have access to some history about that site and the Coast Guard itself.
Right, and the potential for us making any headway here.
Exactly.
Okay, well, thank you all. I think, again, a useful discussion. We need to have additional ones, but let's pursue it. Thank you, Andrew, for taking the lead on this. And I think that's pretty much it. I did get something about rats at one of our park spaces down at Hanover Square. Did you hear about that one? Joel Copel, I think, raised it, but I think he already discussed it with Lucian. So let's leave that, and we don't have anyone from Parks on the call anyway. Okay. Thank you all. I think it was a good meeting, and we will see you at the community board meeting next month. Thank you. Thank you, Diana.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Bye all.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Hi, everybody.